Hey mathematicians, we are going to be talking about our first day of graphing inequalities and solving inequalities. I know you did a little bit last year, but that was so last year. So we're just going to kind of refresh your memory. But I want you to be thinking about how we're going to be utilizing the same strategies and same steps that we did with solving equations. The difference is we have an inequality symbol. All right, so let's take a look at this first one. What this first problem says is 13 is greater than x minus -2. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this just as though it's an equation. So I'm going to begin by add up. I know that some of you like to do that. So I end up with 13 is more than x plus 2. And then my goal is to get x by that self. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides because that's how I undo plus 2. And I get that 11 is more than x. Now, when I graph this on a number line, I'm going to put 11, right? Because that's my important number. And from there, I need to decide if it's an open dot or a filled in dot. If it's less than or greater than, it's an open dot. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, which means that it includes the number we're talking about, then it's going to be a filled in circle. Okay, so when I look at this, I have that 11 is more than x, so it's going to be an open circle. It doesn't include x, it's more than x, 11 is more than that. So what I'm going to think about in terms of which direction to graph, 11 is more than x. So x, I got to come up with a number that works for that. So 11 is more than 10, let's say. Well, 10 is going to be on this side of the number of the 11. So that's how I know which side to shade it. Okay, and we've got a multitude of examples that I'm going to walk you through. So as we go through this, you'll hear that same thing over and over again, okay? But also feel free to pause or whatever you need to do to make sure you're getting the information that you need. So that's what we do. We solve it, and then we graph it. So let's look at the second one. We're going to go with 15 is greater than or equal to a minus 5. My goal is to get a by itself. So I'm going to undo subtraction by adding 5, just like I would do if it was an equation. And I get that 20 is greater than or equal to a. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to put 20 on my number line because that's the number I'm focused with. Because it's greater than or equal to, that means it's going to be a filled in circle. And 20 is more than any other number, okay? So 20 is more than 10. I just used that in the last example. 10 is going to be over here on the number line. So we think about the number line and what that would look like. That tells me I'm going to shade this direction. All right. Let's take a look at this next one. 3/5 x is more than 9. 3/5 x is greater than 9. So when I have a coefficient that's a fraction, I like to multiply by the reciprocal. You could also divide both sides by the same number. It really comes down to your choice in what you want to do with that. So 3/5 times 5/3 is 1. So x is more than 15. 9 times 5/3 is 15. So 15 is going to be the number I put on my number line. X is greater than. If it's a greater than symbol, I know it's open because it's not going to include 15. And x is more than 15. So I need to come up with a number greater than 15. Let's try 27. All right. Well, 27 falls somewhere over here. So I'm going to shade to the right. All right. Yeah. Okay, so we're solving them just like we would an equation. And then the graphing part is a little bit new. So we're going to continue to practice that. So 16 plus 2x is more than 14. So what I'm going to do is subtract 16 from both sides because my goal is to get x by itself. So 2 times something is more than -2. 14 minus 16 is -2. Divide by 2. X is more than -1. So on my number line, I'm going to put -1. It's an open circle because it does not include -1. And a number more than -1 could be 0. So the 0 is over here. I'm going to shade to the right. All right. So when we're looking at this, again, keep it in mind, we're going to be solving these much like we solve equations, and then we're going to be graphing them. So this next one's a 2-step. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So -2x is less than or equal to 7. Now, if you've been kind of tuning me out or just hitting play so the numbers are there, I really need you to hear this. Even if you've been listening, I really need you to hear this. When you have a negative number and you divide both sides by a negative number, you need to flip the sign. All right, so let's write this down here. When multiplying or dividing by a negative number, I'm going to change the color here. Flip the sign. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the sign. And so what I want you to do right now is copy this down. Pause the video if you need to, but let's get this copied down. So what I mean by flip the sign is it becomes greater than or equal to. So you notice that I put it in a different color. I think sometimes that helps. So x is more than -3.5. So x is more than -3.5. So on my number line, -3.5 goes there. It's more than or equal to. That means it includes it. It's filled in. A number more than -3.5 is 8. And that's going to be on the right side. So I shade to the right. Okay. 6 minus 3x is more than -9. Let's solve it out. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So -3x is more than -15. I'm going to divide both sides by -3. Now, I'm multiplying or dividing by a negative number. That means I flip the sign. It now becomes less than. All right, and now I can finish my problem off. X is less than 5. Five is my number on the number line. It's open dot because it's less than. It doesn't include 5. And less than 5 would be like 2. So I'm going to shade the direction of the 2, shading to the left. Right? And you might have your own trick to figure out which way to shade. That's fine too. Use what works for you. Okay. We're going to do 2 more right now. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. That's how you undo the fraction. When I multiply both sides by a negative number, I need to make sure I flip the sign. I like to write it in a different color, just kind of reminding myself that I need to do that. So y is going to be more than or equal to -40. Y is more than or equal to -40. So -40, we're going to put a filled in circle. And if y is more than that, it's going to shade to the right. One more example, and then we're going to do some verbal to algebraic and then get you on your way. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. So 1/2 x is more than or equal to 5. Again, when my fraction is the coefficient, I multiply by the reciprocal. So I get that x is more than or equal to 10. Filled in circle because it's more than or equal to. And I shade to the right because that's the direction that is more than 10. All right, so keep this part in mind right here. When multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you've got to flip that sign. Now, translating is something we've done a little bit of work with as well. I'm going to walk you through that so we can practice it. We're going to continue to build on it. So it's okay, you know, as we're going through, sometimes learning it or relearning it can be challenging. You're going to do just great. So just stay with it. Stay persistent. Here we go. 3 more than, it's addition, a number, n, is less than. Now, you might say, well, why didn't we use the more than sign on the first part? Well, the reason is because it doesn't have the word is. Is what kind of compares the two parts. So is less than tells me to use the less than symbol, and that's 12. Number 2, 13 less than a number. Okay. So lots of thens, less than, more than. Earlier in the year, we talked about a switch word. And less than is your switch phrase. So when you see that, you need to flip that around. So a number less than 13, or 13 less than a number, is greater than or equal to 26. So a few things happening here. Less than is considered a switch word. Okay, that means I have to switch the order. Okay, and then is greater than or equal to. Okay, is greater than or equal to. All right, 26. Now let's take a look again at number 3. Here we go. 4 more than twice a number. Ooh, is no more than. Is no more than is less than or equal to 16. If it's no more than, it can be less than, and it can be equal to. Okay. All right. 18 is at least 2 more than 6 times the number. So 18 is at least. That means it's more than or equal to, is at least 2 more than 6 times the number. At least means it has to be greater than or equal to. We'll keep practicing this along too. Good times. All right. Hopefully we can get to the state fair. For those of you who like to do that, for those of you who don't, no big deal that you missed it last year. But I know some families like to do that. Something we kind of plan into our trips budget for the summer. So you go to the Minnesota State Fair with $50 and it costs you $15 to get in. Each food item is $7. Write an inequality to represent how many food items you can buy. Okay, so $50 is what you spend. What you spend has to be equal to or less than. Okay, so now what am I buying? I'm paying $15 to get in, and I'm paying $7 per item. $7 per item. So what's the maximum numbers I can buy? You can do guess and check. Okay, you can do whatever, you know, that's an option if you want. All right, or you can solve the equation. So 50 is greater than or equal to 15 plus 7x. Subtract 15. 35 is more than or equal to 7x. So x is going to be less than or equal to 5. All right. So this is where we're going to stop for now. If you've got further questions, please let me know. Take care.